part of voicing your elasticity, and my partner will be taking you through the last three. So first, let's discuss what PED is. So PED measures the degree of responsiveness of the quantity demanded for a product when there is a change in its own price. So a product can either be price elastic or price inelastic. So price elastic is a slight change in price or income leads to a large change in demand for a product, and price inelastic is a change in price or income has little impact on demand for a good or service. So a product can also be either a necessity or a luxury goods. So necessities are essential products. They are usually price inelastic because there's not likely to be a drop in quantity demanded if prices rise. And luxury goods are price elastic. This is because they are not essential and consumers do not need these items. They can choose from cheaper alternatives if price increases. So also PED can be calculated by dividing the percentage change in quantity demanded by the percentage change in price. Now I'll be going through and comparing different products for PED. So first I'll go through two examples of price inelastic products, then two examples for price elastic products. So for price inelastic, the first example is tap water. Tap water is price inelastic because if the water company were to increase the cost of water bills, the demand will not change because water is a necessity to survive and is used in drinking and cooking. There is no substitutes for water. And the second example is gasoline or petrol. So gasoline is price inelastic because if the price of gasoline goes up, the demand does not change. This is because petrol has few alternatives and driving is a necessity and people with cars need petrol. Therefore, price is inelastic. So now I'll be going through two examples for price elastic products. So the first one is Kit Kat. Kit Kat is price elastic because if there's an increase in price, then there will be a change in demand. This is because there are many alternatives to Kit Kat, like Smarties, Mars, Aero. People will switch to these alternatives if there's an increase in price of Kit Kat. The second example is motor vehicles, and motor vehicles are price elastic because if there's an increase in price to a vehicle, there will be a change in demand. This is because there are many different motor vehicles, and if there's an increase in price of one motor vehicle, people will switch to another. So now I'll be going through what is YED. So YED is income elasticity demand, and it basically measures the responsiveness of demand when there's a change in income. So a product can either be income elastic demand or income inelastic demand. So income elastic demand is the demand is responsive to change in consumers' real income and supplies for services and luxury goods. And income elastic demand is relatively unresponsive to change in consumers' real income. This applies for necessities. So YED can also be calculated by the percent change in quantity demanded divided by the percent change in income. Now I'll be comparing different products for YED. So first, for positive YED, they are necessities and luxury goods. So necessities are normal goods with a YED value of less than 1. This means that demand is income inelastic. Products such as water are essential. Customers will continue to buy such essential products to meet their needs, even if the price of necessities increase. The proportionate change in quantity demand is less than a proportionate change in real incomes. They do not buy significantly more because of an increase in real incomes. So now for luxury goods. Luxury goods are normal goods as well, with a positive YED that is greater than 1. This means that an increase in real consumers' income leads to a proportionally greater increase in the demand for luxuries. Customers are responsive to change in real income levels when buying luxury goods and services such as diamond rings. Hence, the demand for luxuries is income elastic. So now for products that have a negative YED, so this is inferior goods. So inferior goods are products that customers tend to buy less as the real income level rises. The income elasticity of demand for inferior goods and services has a negative coefficient. This is because consumers substitute inferior or less desirable products for a more superior one. For example, people might choose to buy fresh meat instead of frozen meats when their real income level increases. The determinants of PED and the impact of the coefficient of elasticity. So the first determinant of PED is the number of closeness of substitutes. So this means the PED of a product will be higher if there are a high number of substitutes. If there is an increase in price of a product, then consumers can switch to another substitute. So example is, if prices of Kit Kat go up, then consumers can easily switch to chocolate such as Smarties, Mars, and Aero. Products will be inelastic if there are a small number of substitutes available. When price increases for these products, like water and gasoline, then demand will not change as there are only few substitutes. So now I'll go through the second determinant of PED, which is the degree of necessity. So products that are necessities to live are price inelastic, like food, water, gasoline. There is no significant drop in demand if the price of these increases. Luxury goods are price elastic because they are not a necessity. Customers can choose to a cheaper option, or they may not need this item, such as watches, diamonds, rings, etc. So an increase in price of these products would cause a change in demand. So now the third determinant of PED is the proportionate of income spent on the product. So this means that the more price elastic demand of a product will be if there is a greater proportion of real consumers' income spent on the good. Consumers are sensitive to changes in price of a product that account for a large proportion of their income. Examples are sports cars, diamonds, and holidays. If the product accounts for a small proportion of people's income, then the increase in price will not affect the consumer spending. For example, if safety matches increase in price, then people will not reduce their purchase of the product. And the last determinant of PED is a time period. So as time increases for a product becomes more price elastic, as there are more alternatives that come into the market. For example, diesel is more expensive than leaded fuel, but has a greater fuel efficiency. With time, the higher tax of the price of diesel fuel has caused an increased number of drivers to switch to unleaded fuel. Over an even longer time, these drivers are likely to switch to electric cars as prices are lower. Time period also affects customer changes in buying habits. The more durable products, such as furniture and home appliances, the more price elastic demand is. This is because higher prices of durable products mean consumers will not replace their furniture frequently. So now I'll be going through complements, substitutes, normal goods, and inferior goods, and their relationship to elasticity. So normal goods are products in which consumers buy as their real income level increases. Normal goods have a positive YAD. Normal goods include both necessities, which are food products or staples, and luxuries, such as cars, jewelry, and overseas holidays. Therefore, normal goods have a positive income elasticity. As income rise, more goods are demanded at each price level. So now I'll be going through inferior goods. So inferior goods are products that customers tend to buy less of as their real income level rises. Hence, the income elasticity of demand for inferior goods and services has a negative coefficient. This is because consumers substitute inferior or less desirable products for more superior ones. Inferior goods have a negative income elasticity of demand. As consumers' income rises, they buy fewer inferior goods. So now I'll be going through substitutes and the relationship to elasticity. So a product is price elastic if there are a lot of substitutes of a product. This is because the demand of the product changes if price changes as well. More people will switch to another substitute if price increases. A product is price inelastic when there are not many real substitutes. If price increases on a product, the demand will not change because there is no substitute of the product. So now lastly I'll be going through complementary goods. So complementary goods are the combination of two goods that add value to one another. And the value of one good increases when it is combined with another good or service. For example, cereal and milk, or gasoline and cars. There are weak and strong complementary goods. Weak goods have low cross elasticity and of demand. For example, if price of coffee increases, it will only have a marginal impact on reducing the consumption of cream. So this is the end of my part, and my partner will be going through the last three sections of this presentation.
So the role of PED in firms' decision making. For PED, firms will generally be more willing to raise prices of a product if they know its PED is relatively low. A few examples of these are cigarettes, bottled water, and any necessity held by a monopoly, as either consumers are unwilling to move away from the firm due to necessity or addictiveness, or in the case of the monopoly, there are no options for the necessity. Contrastingly, if the PED for a product is relatively high or above 1, firms would be more hesitant to raising prices, as they know that will drive more consumers away. They instead would rather and be more willing to decrease the price where reasonable to generate more revenue. Some examples of these products would be sports cars, leather jackets, or diamond earrings. So in other words, if firms increase the price for any of these products by a certain amount, they will see a larger decrease in quantity demanded, making it unreasonable for the firms to raise prices on these kinds of products. So the role of PES, or price elasticity of supply, in firms' decision making. When it comes to PES, firms also take it into account when making decisions regarding production levels. Generally, when the market price for a product increases, firms will try to produce more of that product and put it out on the market. The process is effective for some products which have a short turnaround time from the start of their production to their placement on shelves. These products have a high price elasticity of supply of over 1. Some examples of these include pens, books, and chairs. This is because it takes a short amount of time for producers to produce a larger quantity of these products in a short time if they see that the market price has gone up. However, for other products, this isn't the same. The production of these other products takes longer, hence delaying a producer's responsiveness towards a change in market price. These products have a low PES of below 1. Some examples include most crops, oil, and coal. So PED plays a role in the decisions made by government as to taxing certain products. Taxes are a source of income for government and a means to discourage the usage of a product. For example, if the government wants to tax a product like McDonald's burgers that have a high PED, the taxation will generally be effective because the taxation will lead to higher prices for the consumer, which will greatly disincentivize the consumer to purchase the product due to its high PED and allow the consumer to switch to a substitute product. The opposite is true for a product with a low PED, as the eventual increase in prices passed on to the consumer will affect the consumer to a much smaller degree than the product with the high price elasticity of demand will. This being likely due to a lack of substitutes. So in the specific case of McDonald's, there are many substitute chains such as KFC, Burger King, and Wendy's, just to list a few, that are viable alternatives to consumers if there is an increase in prices for McDonald's products. This is the main reason for McDonald's low PED, and frankly, nearly all fast food chains' low price elasticity of demand. It comes from a range of substitute chains, and in this case, products as well. So price elasticity of demand for primary commodities. For primary commodities, they are goods that have a low PED because they are necessities and have a lack of substitutes. For example, primary commodities like oil, coal, and natural gas are necessities to any current economy, and they do not have substitutes because they are raw minerals. These two main attributes make primary commodities generally price elastic. For YED, or income elasticity of demand of primary commodities, similarly to price elasticity of demand, the income elasticity of demand of primary commodities is also generally low. This is especially true for the agricultural sector, because as someone's income changes, their need or quantity demanded for fruits and vegetables will see a very small change, as one's amount of consumption does not change with changes in income. This reasoning is less valid for raw minerals. However, their YED is still unit elastic, meaning that the YED of primary commodities is generally inelastic or inelastic as a whole. So for price elasticity of demand of manufactured goods, the price elasticity of demand, or PED, of manufactured goods are generally higher than the PED of primary commodities for two main reasons. Firstly, manufactured goods very often have many substitutes, meaning that, for example, an increase in price in one producer's goods will lead consumers to switch to other products. Another reason that some manufactured goods, like luxury goods, are price elastic is that consumers view them as not necessary and as a luxury, meaning that if there is an increase in price, consumers will not buy them as it is not worth it to them. But if there is a decrease in price, consumers will take advantage of the opportunity and purchase them. A good example of this would be diamond watches. So for YED of manufactured goods, for even more obvious reasons than PED, the YED, income elasticity of demand, of manufactured goods is higher than the YED of primary commodities. This is because for manufactured goods, and especially luxury goods, they are not a necessity to one's survival, and they are viewed as a product that would be nice to have. This directly correlates to YED because as one's income fluctuates, a significant change in quantity demanded will occur. If income decreases, a large number of consumers will shift away from those products and spend the money they do have on necessary items, and vice versa for an increase